What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Bladen Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, in Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. I know we're going to talk about the Eagles trade with the Saints, because that was kind of crazy. And I know we want to talk about the NBA as the playoffs are going to start soon, the play-ins. Lakers got eliminated, and I know everyone's like, oh, thank God the Lakers got eliminated. No one's going to talk about the Lakers anymore. Psych.
We're talking about the Lakers even more.
We're talking about the Lakers even more. Before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm reeling from the news that I received 3 minutes ago. This is my live reaction that you're seeing right now, that the Suns have waived Frank Kaminsky, which is
They're
just
cooked.
so brutal.
No!
They waived Frank Kaminsky, and you know, Frank the Tank, I watched him at Wisconsin. You know, I'm a Wisconsin sports fan, had to root for them as they made that run years ago. And I watched Frank do it and lead them to a Final Four appearance. He took them as far as he could. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised at the news because I know they want Ish Wainwright on the roster for the playoffs and he's been hurt. But Kaminsky was actually kind of weirdly balling before. So I was kind of hoping that we could get him back for the playoffs and see if he was still in the best shape of his life as he clearly was before the injury. I don't know. I'm just in shock. I'm in shambles. The Suns, they'll rue the day they released Frank Kaminsky. But hey, maybe this means Sarge is coming back. Maybe they think Sarge will come back and they won't need him and Kaminsky, which I'd be down to see. I miss him.
Theo, I see you're wearing the Stay Hot shirt today.
I'm wearing the Stay Hot shirt and I'm wearing the hat that I got for $5 in Seattle. It says, I'm not shy. I'm just studying my prey. And it's just a warning to everybody who meets me walking down the street that, you know, they're under surveillance by me. And
it's a warning to the Italians after the Italian food take you had on the TikTok account.
Yeah.
So we got Theo trying to like fight for his life against Italians. We got Matt with a different camera angle today. We're no longer pointed at his, what's the movie painting that you have?
Okay, you can still see it.
Oh, you can still see it. Okay, you can still see it a little bit. And then the Radiohead poster also.
It's been cut out.
Yeah, it's tough. But as always, make sure you all subscribe to the YouTube channel. No holiday today, but we're like a week away from tax day and Good Friday. So like,
by the time you get this,
subscribe.
By the time you listen to this episode, it will be my sister's birthday. So you got to subscribe to
happy birthday
to my sister. Yeah, in her honor, all she texted me and she said, all I want is for people to subscribe to my brother's podcast and his continued success. So
facts. In other news, Matt got verified on Twitter.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
It was kind of a jump scare, honestly, to open Twitter and see yourself with the verification badge. It was weird. And then I spent some time thinking about if I should like tweet something out about it, but then I just figured
just keep moving on.
But it's cool. Yeah. It's cool. The little verified tab you get where you can see only notifications or like likes and mentions from verified people is cool.
So you can filter us out now. You don't have to listen to the peasants like me and Bladen.
I have you guys on notifications, so
yeah, notifications too.
Now that you have a blue check mark, you have to like overreact to everything and have just horrible.
No more good tweets.
Good tweets.
Do you feel pressure to like tweet differently?
I can't retweet ballsack sports, I'm afraid. Like there's sometimes where I don't want to get in trouble for retweeting like fake news, and then although I don't think they would care that much. But
who's they? Twitter, yeah. If
I
well, at worst, you just get the check mark taken away, and like it's not really that big of a deal. You could do some shit though.
Well, I've thought about that. I'm not going.
Can you take a check mark away? Is that it?
I think you could. Well, you could get your account banned. That's the big thing, is that they take the check mark away. But if you're if you're a verified account spreading like fake information, that's maybe why I don't want it, because I always will joke around and say shit that's like
just lie
not quite true. Like that's a big part of my brand, and so I know that like as Blue Wire employees, they've submitted us all for verification. So I'm going to get that, and it's going to get everybody in trouble. Sorry. Anyway.
I think it's cool. I definitely am. I don't know if I'm tweeting differently, but I've been gaining a little bit more followers because I've had the blue check mark, I think.
Really?
So it's been cool. Maybe I will switch up and just start acting completely different on Twitter. Who knows?
Hollywood. Well, let's get to some actual, this is a sports podcast. Let's talk about some sports. The Eagles traded, what picks was it? 16?
It's such
19,
a confusing trade,
good luck with this.
And 194 to the Saints in exchange for picks 18, 101, 237, and a 2023 first round pick and a 2024 second round pick. I can't lie. First glance, I was like, damn, the Eagles got fucking fleeced. That was my initial reaction.
Basically, they decided to trade one of their firsts to push back to next year in exchange for a second and a third. Basically, that's what happened. That's the way I think.
Yes, a third this year and a second 2 years from now for for free. Yeah, and what they give away is instead of 3 this year, it's 2 and 2, which makes sense that it's 2 and 2 because I don't think for the Eagles they have a Super Bowl window right now. I think that's fair to say. So it doesn't really, if they were in a situation where they were win right now mode or holy cow, our window is wide open right now, then you would probably want as many picks this year as possible. But I don't really think that's the situation that they're in. So the fact that it's taking place over the next 3 years, it's just extra stuff for them. And time is not of the essence for them. So I like it for them.
I agree.
What's interesting about this trade is what the Saints are doing. And I think it's also a good conversation about how I think the general public thinks about teams versus what teams think about themselves, and the logic that teams internally go through versus the logic that other people go through. Because most of the things I've seen is the Saints lost this deal, but I'm not sure that's true.
People have the idea, and this is true with the Utah Jazz as well. People have the idea that teams are going to give up way quicker than they actually do. It's Sean Payton's gone, so they're not going to be good. That's not
right.
No team is thinking that. Or it's with the Utah Jazz. It's they're having fights right now, so they're going to completely blow up the roster and suck next year on purpose. It's dude, I'm not confident they're going to do that. With the Saints, they're still being aggressive because they still think they can be good, and I don't think they're wrong.
Right. Because if you're looking at this from the Saints, if you're looking at this from the outside point of view, you might be thinking, why are the Saints going making an all-in win now move like this when they just got rid of Sean Payton and they have a tough schedule and they have Jameis, they could be bad next year. Why would you make a move like this? But the Saints are thinking okay, we got rid of Sean Payton, yes, but we promoted Dennis Allen, who has been the architect of one of the best defenses in the leagues over the past couple years. Their offensive coordinator, who is still there, has been there for 17 years. All right, including a season where Sean Payton was suspended and the offense was still one of the best in the league. So they are okay, Sean is gone, but this is not. It is still full steam ahead. We as an organization have to work under the expectations that these guys can pick up the slack. And yes, it's tough, but these guys are still good and we still trust them. Whereas someone on the outside might just be oh yeah, it was all Sean. On the internally, you're looking at that and saying coaching staff, we hired you to do a good job. Right. We have to assume that you're going to do a good job.
No, I definitely do believe in that coaching staff. And honestly, I believe in Jameis.
I do too.
When Jameis was healthy last year, that team they were rolling. Jameis was playing well. And
before this year, they 5 straight winning seasons or 5 straight double-digit win seasons. They were a high seed and one of the best teams in the league for 4 years. And then this year rocked with injuries. One of the Kamara, Michael Thomas, Jameis,
it's amazing.
COVID.
They went 9-8.
It was amazing.
They had a winning record.
Yes, It was amazing they had a winning record. So it's when they get Jameis back and they get Michael Thomas back, like they've got to be thinking, okay, we went 9-8 last year. Yes, we lost Sean Payton, but the coaching staff is still largely intact. We're getting all these guys back. We will almost certainly be a better roster than the one last year where we went 9-8. We just have a couple of holes to fill because we have a couple of holes we need to fill, but we're ready to make a run. And I don't think that's bad logic for them. And the other thing is like, oh, well, you lost Sean Payton. Your schedule is tough next year. I think they play the AFC West. So that's brutal. But it's like, okay, instead of packing up shop with those, when those obstacles come at you, okay, like that's, I think instead of the Saints being like, we need more help, not, okay, it's time to quit. They're like, oh, things they're it's going to be tough next year because we have no Sean Payton and we have a hard schedule. A lot of people like outside of the team look at that and being like, okay, don't bet on yourselves. Like just pack up shot till things are easier. The teams are looking at that like, oh, well, that's definitely why we need another first this year because we're in a position to contend.
It's even tougher.
We need more. Yeah. It's even tougher. We need more help. So always, that's why.
No team is just going to be like, well, I guess it's time to fold as an organization, except for like the Cleveland Browns.
The only two teams with like an excuse, because you have to expect to win the Super Bowl going into the year. Every team does, except for maybe like the Lions and maybe like the Texans. If you're those two franchises, maybe you're like, we've got these big trades that just happened. We have a lot of picks. Our timeline is not right now. Maybe a team like the Bears who just got a new coach.
Very few
and
teams
GM.
Have their timeline
very few
insanely far in the future.
Right.
Like
the Eagles a little bit where it's like, okay, we've got all these picks.
But even the Eagles made the playoffs last year.
Yeah, the Eagles made the playoffs last year. I mean, they're way ahead of schedule from where they're supposed to be. I think like from the Eagles perspective, if we want to tilt to that real quick, like this almost feels like, okay, we got another pick for next year now.
That's free money.
That's free money. And it's just like, it's a great trade Jalen Hurts has been on an uphill trend. But let's say he plateaus this year. Well, guess what? Now you have a contingency.
This is where I disagree.
You disagree.
There are a lot of teams next year with multiple firsts. And the idea is like, great, so they'll be able to trade up. Unless the first, like, who are the big like quarterbacks next year? Bryce Young and Stroud. But like, what if the top two teams want them?
Right.
And that's almost certainly going to be the case. And this is assuming that both those guys are the one and the two prospects. Like there's too many. I think there's too many fan bases. Well, I don't disagree.
What's your alternative though? Like it's like, okay,
give up.
Let's say it's like, what if you just don't have that pick though? Well, now you have literally no leverage to make that trade up. So at least now you have something to offer.
No, that's very true. And there's other guys too. But I don't think it, at the end of the day, there's only one Bryce Young and one CJ Stroud. And that's assuming that they're thought of as the number 1 and number 2 pick this time next year, which is like far from a guarantee.
At this time last year, it was Spencer Rattler and
yes, it was.
Who's the guy that you don't like?
Howell.
Yeah. Those were the top two guys this time last year.
Year before, not year before, but Sam Darnold was like the surefire number 1 pick Andrew Luck level prospect before his last season. And he still went number 3 overall.
Went 3, yeah.
I was thinking about this while doing my laundry. I think it is kind of like if you are projected like a year in advance to be the first overall pick, I'm going to assume that like you're not. Like that's just
well, your odds are bad. I'll give you that.
Like, okay, here's my thought process, right? We'll take Thibodeau for example, because Thibodeau was kind of that like surefire first overall pick for a while, and then as the offseason comes around, as we get closer to the draft time, we're like, oh, but Aiden Hutchinson's really good. Oh, but Trayvon Walker, wow, he's so fast, he's so quick, right? And all of a sudden. Right, Thibodeau, you're number 1. You have nowhere to go but down. But all these other guys are going to come up. Like you can't gain any more hype. So it's like, well, who are they going to pass? You. And before you know it, you're like number 9 on everyone's board.
Yeah, and I just think the big thing is that I hear so many fans talking about like, well, we're just tanking for CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. It's like we haven't even seen where they're going to finish as prospects. We are very far away from that. So I have it. I think it's impossible to believe. I could see maybe a team being like the Lions saying, quarterback class looks pretty solid next year. We'll wait. But I don't think any team is like, we are tanking for CJ Stroud right now. Not saying he won't be good, but like, there's just no way.
Yeah. No, the Eagles, I think I think it comes down to this. Do we like any of the quarterbacks in this class better than Jalen Hurts? And then no. Okay, so we're not going to trade up for anybody. We'll just move it back to next year. We don't need them all right now. And if next year there is a guy we like better, we'll have some ammunition. If not, we just have 2 picks and it's fine. So I don't think anybody is like, part of their long-term plan. Yeah. Right. No one has. People don't know who they're going to draft in this draft class, right? Never mind next draft class. So yeah, a little bit of the Stroud stuff, but they may say like in general, we think like the next year we have a better odds of someone we might like more 100%. Than Hurts. Plus we get another year of seeing Hurts and seeing if he improves. But at any rate, the Saints, the other thing about the Saints is I think that it is possible that they package the 2 picks they got and move up for a tackle. I think that is not, I would not do it if I was them because I think they have a couple holes to fill at wide receiver.
How high do you think they have to go? How high do you think
I think it depends, but from what I can tell, when the Saints took Ryan Ramczyk, his big thing was that he was this like elite guy in pass protection. And he fell really far, but he was like, this guy's the most polished pass protector. And this year you look at it and you're like, Cross is maybe a little bit slept on by a lot of teams, and his scouting report is very similar. So I wonder if they're like, if Cross falls a little bit, that's who we want to go and trade up.
I think for all the tackles, you'd feel like you'd have to get in the top 7 past both like top 7. But I do think picks like 2 mid-round firsts and more can get you up there. It would not shock. Look, they need wide receivers. They need a tackle. I would just stay where I'm at and be like wide receiver, like best wide receiver, and then maybe best offensive line. Or you don't obviously pigeonhole yourself into like, we need a offensive tackle here, we're going to reach. But that's what my plan would be, is I'd rather get 2 than 1. But it would not shock me if they want to trade up.
And they've done 7. This before with
Davenport. They did it with Davenport. They traded with the Packers. They got their guy. The Saints GM is not shy about moving up.
He's a little bit of I could see Cross being their guy. It's very
I could see it too. When I first got it, and the only team they jumped with was the Chargers. So it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think the move to 16 was to get their guy. I think it's just to get a pick. So it's not. Yeah. So if there is their guy thereafter, it would not surprise me to see them package these 2. And it would be fine if they went up and got a tackle, one of the good tackles, because I do
Cross
think
is a great player.
There's a pretty severe tier break between Cross and the next guy, Penning or Raymond or whoever.
Like Penning was a guy that I thought they might be interested in there, but
the only disaster would be if they package the 2 picks trade up for one of the quarterbacks in this class, because then you're giving up.
I think Winston's too good for that.
Right. I would hope so. But yeah, if you're giving up like multiple top 100 picks for any quarterback in this draft class, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. So that's the one thing about the Saints I'd say. As for the Eagles, I would say,
I don't know. In general, though, with New Orleans, it's like kind of back what we said earlier. A lot of people look at every team, like they're looking as a fan and like looking at the NFL as all 32 teams. And it's like, oh, this team is not going to be that good. So they're not serious, or like this team has too hard of a path. But the Saints aren't looking from the perspective of like, how do these 32 teams look? They're the Saints and they have to try to be competitive.
Right. And you got to look at, you're going to make better projections for everyone if you just assume that they think of themselves as contenders instead of like they're
going to come into the office and like mope every day. No.
Right. Like, we're especially when they just went 9-8.
If you look at all 32 teams, you can say, well, if these ones probably aren't.
I personally think the Saints would be bad. So I personally think that they should give up. Like, no, the Saints don't think that they're going to be bad. It's a horrible, it's a horrible way to think. Oh, we're probably going to be bad. I've done all my division things and I think we're going to go.
It's even worse in the NBA with NBA fans. If NBA fans had it their way, 20 teams would be tanking right now. It's like, oh, this team, and it's just not the way it can be. Teams are always going to try to be competitive longer than people expect, I think.
Speaking of teams trying to tank, I saw the report this morning that your Hornets, this is getting into NBA, this is my transition. Clearly the Hornets might be trying to tank as they are Sorry, Russ. I just talked about yesterday how it was mean that everybody was so mean to Russ.
No, I mean, look, if you're saying horrible things about Russ, that's not cool. Like, it's not that serious. But we can be like honest about.
Yes. If you're saying horrible things to Russ, like in the street or like yelling at him like in person and harassing him live, but if you're on a sports podcast,
at that point you're just kind of a freak. Like, I don't.
If you're on a sports podcast, I think the morality is a little bit better to be.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying,
why would the Hornets want? Why would the Hornets want him if they're not?
So,
Matt, what are your thoughts?
There's two ways that the Hornets could be looking at this. Either this is. Here, we have a very conservative general manager, like incredibly conservative. He likes to build through the draft, very good at it, doesn't make big trades, doesn't make big trades.
He's a QAnon truther. He thinks Biden should be in Gitmo. He's very conservative.
Trading for Russell Westbrook on a $47 million contract would be the opposite of conservative. If I had to guess what the most like logical, like why they could want to do this from that standpoint would be, they want to get off of maybe Gordon Hayward's contract. And he's not, we've talked about how he's sort of like he's in that mid-range where he's not worth his contract a lot, largely because he just can't stay healthy. $30 million for the next 2 years is a lot, but he's also not, he's still a good player. He's still a very good player. And if I were the Hornets right now maybe have a problem of too many cooks in the kitchen. There's too many guys on offense, and you want to hand the keys over to LaMelo and Bridges, but you have those two plus Rozier plus Gordon Hayward, and it's like, man, we need to start really giving the workload to LaMelo and Miles and them. So maybe their idea is we will do some sort of Gordon Hayward for Russell Westbrook and maybe a pick swap. We'll take on Westbrook. We'll buy him out. We'll take the cap hit this year, and the next offseason, we would have probably close to a max slot in the final year that we have LaMelo on his rookie deal. And that would be our last chance to go sign someone to a big deal while the team is really good, and we could make a push then. And then once LaMelo hit his contract, because that's probably what they're fighting the clock against, because Rozier's on a big contract, Miles is on a big contract. Once LaMelo gets on that big contract, that's it. Like, they're not going to be able to do something like that. And since Hayward's contract runs 2 more years and Westbrook is only 1, that's what they could do.
Yes.
That would make sense.
That does make some sense to me. And maybe they can even get a third team involved and get some, interior help for more if like there needs to be a third team involved. If the Lakers maybe don't want to just a straight up Hayward deal. There are ways to manipulate that. But yes, Gordon Hayward.
And that would be a big upgrade for LA.
It would be a big upgrade for LA. And it does make some sense. And yes, Hayward is making $30 million next year, $31 million the year after that. He'd be much
easier to work into that Lakers rotation.
Okay.
He would be.
Well, when the first thing that I think of when I think of, okay, what are the Lakers going to be looking to do is LeBron going to be there next year?
Well, that's a whole nother question. That's a whole nother thing.
But that's part of it. Is that not part of, like, we're talking about what do the Lakers need to do?
Well, the other part of this, because we don't know how they're looking at it, is maybe the Hornets just really like Russell Westbrook because they were tied to Russell Westbrook last year, and that would be bad. That would be very bad. They cannot just like go genuinely trade for Westbrook, and that's just what we're going to do. And we want to just try to work like him and LaMelo. And I'm not a Westbrook hater at all, but that would be so against the timeline and direction of the team. I think Jordan's a big Westbrook fan. He's obviously Westbrook's a Jordan athlete. And it's just that, and I think that's how everyone is assuming that those rumors are. And maybe they're right, but I'm hoping it's the other way. I feel like overall the trade's pretty unlikely, but I am a little bit worried about that. That would be they're doing very well right now. They're rebuilding very well. They've had the most hope they've ever had in my lifetime.
You know what else is doing very well? You know what else gives you a lot of hope?
What gives you a lot of hope, Blade?
Have you ever heard of PrizePicks?
I have.
That's really good because they're our newest sponsor. I'd hope you'd heard of them. Sports Fanatics. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app made easy. And, I love this, and I know you guys will too. PrizePicks offers more NBA props than any other DFS operator, and they offer every player in every stat category you can think of. You can pick 2 to 5 players on an over or under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. And it's just you versus the projected numbers. PrizePicks allows mixed sport entries. For example, you can take the over on Steph Curry combined with the under on Aaron Judge in the same entry. Users that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just be sure to use our promo code STAYHOT. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code STAYHOT, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Sorry to interrupt you, but I
didn't mean to cut off your point. Do you think it's because it's worth talking about? Things for the Lakers totally change if LeBron does decide to leave. And I was wondering what you guys like. Do you guys think that he'll stay, or do you think he'll leave, or what would you do?
I mean, the team was not good this year, and it wasn't his fault. And usually when things are bad and it's not LeBron's fault, he has two things that he usually does. Number one is try and fix the team. But this was him trying to fix the team, and it didn't work. So what's the other option? He leaves.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on... I think that he probably stays. That's probably the vast minus money if you were to bet on it. Bet him staying would be a pretty safe bet. I think he will leave one day, and if things get rough next year, things get really dicey about him staying. But to me, if he re-ups and they maybe even extend him or something like that, it clears up some cap space where they can maybe go make some moves. If they can get someone like Gordon Hayward for Westbrook, and that's a better move for the Lakers, and all of a sudden they're not in such a bad place again. I think the Lakers can talk themselves into the fact that they were hurt all year. AD missed a ton of games, LeBron missed a lot of games, and it was just a bad season from the jump. And they still have a lot of high-end talent, and maybe more high-end talent than anybody. And people would like to play for the Lakers. So if they can surround them with some more shooters, and it's like, this was a disaster. We're not signing, we're going to get some 3-and-D guys, and we're going to get rid of Westbrook and maybe get Hayward. I don't know. Maybe some other older vet on a deal that a team would like to move off of that still can contribute. There are ways that a team with LeBron and AD, I mean, they're not washed. I mean, they're a little, I don't think those two are washed. Okay. They're not that can be a title winning duo.
It's a team that can get good enough. So where you're like, yeah, I can see that. I can see it. It'll be tough because I really do think the injuries are stacking up, but I agree.
It will be tough. It will be tough. LeBron will be, but next year he's 37 now, he'll be 38. All right. Yeah. It will be tough. AD has been hurt a lot in his career. It'll be tough. But again, I think that the same deal about the Saints a little bit, where people on the outside will be like, oh, just give up, just give up. Athletes have more confidence that things will go well than the fans do. And they believe, I mean, you saw it this, please keep the same energy about my squad that we're too old. Like that whole LeBron tweet. I think the whole Lakers are an example of that, where everybody from the outside, or not everybody, because I still thought the Lakers would be pretty good, but
I did too.
People were legitimately concerned the whole time about the age and the fit of everything. And I think the Lakers, the whole downfall of them this year came because they were a little bit overconfident in their own abilities to just sign all these old guys.
Just make everything work.
Just make everything work.
We'll figure it out.
I know who Dwight Howard is. That's a Hall of Famer. I know who DeAndre Jordan is. I know Westbrook. These are, if you're LeBron and AD, you're like, these guys, we know them. We've been watching them on film. We know what they're capable of. And we are confident that they can be contributors for us, and they're not washed. And we have all this confidence that the people on the outside we still have something to prove, and we're going to prove it. And they were so confident, and it just all went wrong. And it went wrong from the very beginning. I mean, you saw it from the first Lakers game this year. AD dropped 30, LeBron dropped 30, Russ went 3 for 12, and they lost all their preseason games. You know what
this reminds me of? Have you guys seen the Sam Darnold interview where he was like, I know it's out of my control. I'm not going to I'm not going to force, I'm not going to try and act like I have any control over this. I know I'm a good quarterback.
Yes.
I proved it.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Darnold said that.
And I had to pause. I was like,
Darnold said that in an interview.
When did you prove that?
I know I can be a good I know that I'm a good quarterback in this league, and I've proved that, is what Sam Darnold said about if the Panthers are going to try to replace him.
I'm not going to hate on him, but I do feel differently. I'm not going to lie to you.
So
my thing.
Athlete's mentality basically is what I'm saying is it would not surprise me if they just write this off and LeBron still feels like being with AD in LA gives him a good a chance to win a title as anywhere. That's what I would
say the two things that can happen are LeBron does get traded, which I don't think is, I agree, like it is unlikely, but it is also not unthinkable. Sometimes stuff like this gets talked about and it's like, dude, there's just no chance. Like there's some chance of it. I can see it being realistic, but I think he either does do that or he signs an extension.
Yes.
The problem with the Lakers right now, or part of the problem, is that they don't want to be, I don't think they want to be aggressive. And if they're going to make this a reasonable roster and go get the role players, they might have to add money. They might have to send away even more future picks. And I feel like they already felt like they've done enough. So if they're going to go and even farther into the future and do even more stuff to try to get this roster back to where it can compete, assuming Anthony Davis and LeBron stay healthy, which again is a big if, they're going to want a commitment from LeBron. They're not going to go trade away the 2027 and 2029 first-round draft pick and take on even more money and go even deeper into the luxury tax, which is a big deal even for a big team like the Lakers, for a 1 year of LeBron, and then he might leave, and then if he leaves, is Anthony Davis going to want to be there? I don't think they're going to be willing to make a bigger risk commitment
without a bigger
does.
to have 2029 is a long time from now. Yeah. It's a long time from now. It's 7 years from now. You do not want to sacrifice that much for an injury prone core. Like they would be hesitant about that. We talk about how front offices aren't like as hesitant as fans are. That's a lot to ask. They would be hesitant about that. So yeah, I do think that it'll come down to either you have to stay for extend or leave, not something in between is probably, you're right, Matt. And I think LeBron,
I would
go ahead.
Oh, I would just say the other thing is about like, well, are the Lakers confident they can compete? I'd say that the Lakers front office is probably confident that they can compete without LeBron and Anthony Davis. Let's say LeBron skips town or whatever. Let's say he requests a trade. Okay, well, maybe they trade Anthony Davis. They wait one season. They're bad for 1 year. And then all of a sudden, Westbrook comes off the books and they have a ton of money and they are the number one free agency destination right again. So even though, and whatever they get back in the trade for Anthony Davis and LeBron, if they wanted to do those things, would probably be more than what they gave up. And they'd probably still be in a plus of assets, even though they gave up all those first round draft picks. Plus they're the number one location with all that money. So they'd be in a good position, I think, a lot sooner than people think.
It'll be a fascinating offseason for them. It really will be. It kind of does seem like moving on could even be the easy way out, but it also is a big risk to move on from those guys. And also, I'm not sure if LeBron wants, maybe he just loves, I mean, he was in Space Jam. All right. The dude, the movie star.
Jam 3.
The movie star has been in 2 movies. He enjoys it. So I don't know. He might like LA. He might like all the I think that was a big thing about like why he wanted to go there in the first place.
There's
like, why would he choose
non-basketball stuff?
There's non-basketball stuff at play that here where it's like, okay, LeBron probably at this stage in his career wants to be in LA rather than like, yes, he could go back to Cleveland, but like if it's not Cleveland, does he want to go to Phoenix? Does he want to live here? Does he want to live in Boston? Does he want to live in Minnesota? Like, again, like if LeBron was like, I'm done, you know, there's probably only a very, very few amount of places that he wants. So
maybe he goes back to Miami, man.
Maybe he goes back to Miami. Honestly, I don't know. But I do like see where it's like, I can kind of see how it might be a good fit for both sides if they was to get traded or something. But I also see how it's like, that's kind of unlikely and a lot of things have to fall. So that's kind of where I kind of think they say and surround them with some 3-and-D guys.
The last time we talked about the NBA, we talked a lot about the play-ins, but we didn't get to touch on a lot about the playoffs and kind of how that looks. And how do you think that's going to shape up?
Well, we've got 2 games left. So by the time we have our next episode, we'll know exactly how things are situated.
But we have an idea. We know who's like in.
Yes, but that being said, we do know the top 6 seeds, and I don't anticipate there's going to be all that much movement.
That's what I'm saying.
In the next 2, especially in the West. The East is still pretty close.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess it's 50, and I guess it's 3 versus 4. It's 50 wins versus 50 in Warriors Mavericks. So
I mean, it's all still real close. I mean, you're looking. There's not a lot of game separation. Some here. I'll say this about maybe not the way the playoffs will shape up, but just in general, my predictions. I'm doing everything in my power not to predict Suns Bucks because that's boring. But dude. It's getting really tough. I try not to be like, yeah, it's gonna be a repeat because nobody wants to hear that. But
okay, well, Celtics is an option out of the East, right?
That would have been really fun. Rob Williams getting hurt sucks, dude.
But he could be back.
He could be back. If he's back by the second round, actually, that's true. Maybe the Celtics are the fun pick here. And reasonable.
Am still okay. Before the season, I had the Heat making it out of the East. In January, when the Celtics started heating up, I said Heat versus Celtics. Then the Heat went on a little bit of a losing streak, and I was like, maybe everybody's right about the Heat. Maybe they are frauds, and I backed off a little bit. That's cowardly. Heat versus Celtics Eastern Conference Finals. I'm still going with it. It's aged too well for me to just back off and be a bitch about it. All right. I have to stick with it. There have been so many times I've got to see it through. There have been so many times in my life as a take maker that I have changed my mind. I changed my mind prolifically. And whenever I change my mind, like 4 times out of 5, I regret it. And I was more right before. About draft prospects.
You get bullied in the TikTok comments? Dude, it's happened to me too.
It's happened to me, and I changed my mind, and I was right the whole time. So I'm standing with my Heat, make it out of the East. I think I'm putting my foot down. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now, coming close down the stretch here. Hero is their closer. Butler's been better scoring as of late. Bam is as good of a person to defend Giannis as there is in the league. Well coached. Heat culture. Then there's the Celtics, who are the hottest team in basketball post All-Star break, blowing every other Eastern Conference team out of the water in point differential since then. Robert Williams will come back. They've got 2 high-level scorers. They're built for the playoffs. They will. I'm sticking with it. The Bucks could easily make it out of there. It's not a bad pick, but it is really hard to repeat a finals 2 times in a row. Maybe it's not because we just saw like a bunch of Cavs versus Warriors in a row recently, but
I will go Bucks Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, just because of how it's shaping up right now, with Boston and the Bucks as the 2 and the 3 they'd have to play before they get there. But I agree.
I'm thinking about being kind of fun here. I either want to pick the Cavs or the Hawks.
Shocking. 2 very shocking picks from you.
And then there's Brooklyn. Dude, here's the Heat could have to play Brooklyn round 1.
And they win that series.
It'd be tough.
The Nets can't stop anybody. Look.
The Heat, okay, so this is the Heat would only play Brooklyn.
No, here's the disaster scenario.
Yeah.
The Celtics have to play Brooklyn round 1 because Brooklyn is now the 8th seed and they get the first game. And if they win that, they would be the 7th seed.
Yes.
And the Celtics wouldn't have Rob Williams in that series. That's probably not good.
I still think the Celtics could beat the Nets.
I'm not saying they can't win or anything, but that's like...
It would be tough.
The Celtics aren't beating the Cavs. Cavs beat Brooklyn. Cavs beat the Celtics.
They're playing Brooklyn in the playoffs or the last
play-ins.
Okay.
As of right now, though, they have a tiebreaker over Atlanta, so this could all change. It'll all be different after like tonight or something, and none of this part of the podcast
as it always is. Yeah, and then Atlanta's beating Charlotte.
Whoa!
You don't mean that. Certainly, you don't mean that.
Matt, would I ever lie to you?
I got LaMelo winning.
We haven't seen playoff LaMelo. Well, we did last year, and they lost by like 40 in the
That's the
game.
thing, they lost by. I got so excited for that game. I got all ready. I got in a Hornets jersey and everything.
You had your popcorn and your drink.
Was that when we were in Florida, Matt? Was that when we were in Florida?
No. We were in.
Oh yeah, no, because that was in fucking July.
Yeah.
So,
anyway,
never mind.
I think that we should take all the playoff predictions and move them to the next episode. I think
agree.
like right now we've talked about the Lakers, talked about I think the biggest news of the day is the Hornets potentially moving for Westbrook. Maybe what the Lakers will do. I will say, no matter how things shake out, I am sticking with my Celtics Heat Eastern Conference Finals. But like as far as like potential matchups in the first round, let's just wait until next episode, and then we'll know, and we can talk about it without things aging bad.
Fair enough.
And I'll say for the Hornets, if I got to choose how their offseason went, just let Mitch do his thing in the draft. Let him draft whoever. Use the mid-level exception. Go get a Jalen Smith, a Mitchell Robinson, a Mo Bamba, and don't do anything crazy. Maybe trade Gordon Hayward if something's there. But I that's what I predict they'll do, and I think that they'd be wise too.
I think that's a smart move. And speaking of the draft, Bladen, you want to intro this one
today?
I know.
Speaking of the draft, are we going to talk about linebackers today? Is that what we want to do?
I think we have time. I think we have a bit of time.
Yeah, we're moving pretty quick. This is we're only at 40 minutes. Yeah, let's talk about some linebackers. Theo, I know you've watched a decent amount of them. We actually got to interview one of them, which is really cool.
We did.
Nakobe Dean.
I'm a big Dean fan too. I think he's really good.
Okay, and here's what sucks now, right? As we're like, oh, we interviewed Nakobe Dean. Guys, we really think Nakobe Dean's a good player now. But like I think we were
This
all
is not
Dean
just
fans
because we
that.
interviewed him. This is we like Dean because he's
a good football player.
The Georgia linebackers are all it. I think the Georgia defense is going to be like the 2000.
All those guys turns out are really good prospects, pretty much.
2019 LSU offense. It's like, okay, everyone from that offense except for Clyde Edwards-Helaire is good. With the defense in Georgia, it's like everyone on the front seven is good. Maybe not Darion Kendrick, who ran a 4.740 in the secondary. The secondary might be a little fraudulent, but everybody in the front seven is legit. And there is one problem with Dean, and that is that he's 6 feet tall and short. That's short, very small for a linebacker. Short arms, just short, kind of a smaller dude. And it's like, okay, against NFL linemen, is he someone who's going to be able to have the type of effectiveness that he had in college? But the way he moves is a little different than everybody else on the field. That's the thing.
That's always the thing you should look for.
That's always the thing you should look for is like his movement is special and his change of direction is special.
Yeah.
He's like the way when ball carriers slightly like change their path, he is able to keep running. He doesn't have to like slow down and then change direction. He can just turn and bend. And it's strange to watch it sometimes because like, sometimes a linebacker will come flying towards a quarterback. The quarterback will kind of roll out and it'll shake the linebacker and he'll like fly, he'll overshoot and then have to work back. Dean turns with it. Like he turns with the quarterback as he's doing it. He's very agile. And the way he can like maneuver through tight spaces, he's like a little bar of soap. He's crazy like that.
Him being shorter is obviously a disadvantage, but at least he uses part of it to his advantage, and it's not all bad because of the way he's able to move like that. I just think he's so quick, and he's so on top of it. He's really like a quarterback of the defense, I think.
Right. It's like when you think of this Georgia team years from now and this defense, I think the first person you'll remember is Dean as the middle linebacker, the leader of everything, like how he was a vocal leader. We interviewed him about this, how he's like, 3.5 something GPA as an engineering major. And he wanted to do that if he wanted to design. So he's like smart, clearly. The Georgia defense, extremely tough to get down. The stunts, if you watch the stunts that they do, they're ridiculous. And he was like a big part of all of them. And you look at the movement skills and it's like, okay, the size, it is a concern. And the reports from the NFL is like, okay, maybe he's just someone you bring in as a blitzer, as someone who's going to be like a sub package, who's not going to survive all 3 downs. Is like, that is a concern, but I think it's a little bit of a mistake to just look at his size and write him off, because I do think that he's so good in a lot of different areas. And he's good in coverage because he's good at moving.
Yeah.
Although Georgia didn't really, they blitzed him so much that he didn't even get a ton of time in coverage. But yeah, Dean
I've
really
said
good.
this before, I'll say it again. Guys that understand leverage, they always win. And it's clear, like, you know, I know, Theo, you've, you know, talked about this in your video, so I don't want to just like keep regurgitating, you know, whatever, but the way he just like bounces off of offensive linemen, it's nuts. It's
That's
like
the other thing.
He uses, like, it's almost like he uses their strength against them.
That's the other thing. It's not like he's bad working through contact from what I've seen. It's not like he just gets washed. There'll be times where he'll try to fight through like the A gap because he'll be blitzing or whatever. And he'll go right through the A gap in between the center and the guard. And the guard will see him and give him a big push. Like, he'll see like, okay, here he is. Big push. And he's able to just kind of like absorb it and like just kind of absorb it with his upper body and keep his lower body on a line towards the quarterback. So like, he just like kind of squirts right through there. And like, yeah. And the ability to mirror and move laterally. There were times against Alabama in 2020 where I saw him absorb contact from Landon Dickerson, who's a starter in the league right now. So it's like, I think he'll be all right.
That's the thing. If like the size was going to be so damning for him, and it's like he was just going to have like, that's just ruins his ability to go play at the NFL level. You'd probably figure out in the SEC. Like some say the SEC is even harder than the NFL. So really, this might be
That's
even easier.
He's gonna have a Luka. He's gonna have a Luka quote where it's easier to score. Yeah,
it's easier in the NFL.
It's easier. No, but Nakobe Dean good at football.
Quay Walker as well. The other Jordan and Channing Tindall. Quay Walker might be it. Look, I've seen some takes like, okay, he's gonna go before Dean. I might see that too. That's the other. As much as I love Dean, Quay Walker is a lot of the things that Dean is, but also
Walker's
6'4".
Isn't Walker mocked in like the second or like the third?
I've seen him. He's working his way up. His way up to be a first round pick. I saw him mocked to the Bills in Peter Schrager's mock today.
Okay.
I like him too. 6'4", 240 pounds, big. Like, he's no size concerns there. Again, someone who ran a 4 in the low 4.5s, like a 4.52 40. Great working sideline to sideline. He's got that speed and that size. You watch him, like, he knows how to disengage from blocks. He can use that swipe move when linemen are climbing to him and just like work right past him. Or even when he has to put his shoulder down and really meet him, he's got that kind of power in his like frame and his size that he can really pop them and stop them in their tracks and let someone else make the play if you need that, because he's so big and strong and he's smart. Like, I saw him, he's good in coverage. He's good at everything and he's big. He's not quite the type of mover that Dean is. He's not quite that dynamic, but he's big, he's strong, and I really don't have that many concerns with projecting him to the NFL level. So if he's the first linebacker chosen, it wouldn't shock me. Or if he goes before Dean, it wouldn't shock me, because he's really, like, again, I think everybody on that front seven is good. Like, pick them all and prosper. Channing Tindall's ridiculously fast as well. So yeah, I like all the Georgia linebackers.
As you should. What are your thoughts on Devin Lloyd?
Lloyd is going to be the one where it's like, I almost don't want to give a take on him, because I think like his range of outcomes is so great, and he could be a really special player. Like the way that he's a converted safety. He's played edge for them, and he's off ball. And like, you look at the production that he racked up at Utah, and it's really impressive for 3 years. So he's versatile and he's productive, and he's got the potential to be a really, really good linebacker. However, I do not think that he can tackle. That is my thing with him, is his tackling form is with the crown of his helmet, putting it down and just like running into people with the crown of his. It happens. Like, watch a highlight. I'm sure you'll notice it. It's scary. It's like, geez, dude. I don't like that. And I also I think he's kind of an average athlete. I didn't love his change of direction ability. I didn't think that he was like super fast in pursuit. Like when he had to close on a quarterback, maybe like the quarterback would roll out and he's in zone and it's time to go get him. There'd be times where I saw him take off and try to go get him, and it's like, okay, he's kind of a decent athlete instead of like a great, like, oh my God one.
He ran a 4.66 and he didn't do the 3 cone.
He didn't do the 3 cone. His RAS is really good. It's like in the 9s, but I think they're
everyone's scoring a good RAS this year, man.
And
it's because I think they're just avoiding the things that'll like
25 reps on the bench. That's damn good.
Yeah, especially with the length of his arms. He has very long arms, and he pushed out a bunch of reps on the bench, which is really good.
He had a 35-inch vertical.
Yes, that's also good. And there'd be times where you'd see his leaping ability, and like against Stanford, he just jumped up and picked the ball off instead of tipping. He just jumped up.
10-6
the 40 time was underwhelming, and I think it shows up on tape. He didn't run the 3 cone, which I think would have been bad for him. So it's like, okay, he's from the Pac-12. He is, in my opinion, a very average athlete instead of a very good one, and I don't like the way he tackles. So for me, if someone wants to take a chance on him early in the first and bet on all the things he does well, I would not blame them. For the Theo Ash team, the Phoenix Roadrunners, the newest NFL team, I'm not building my team with guys like Lloyd, even though I recognize what I'm missing out on. So for me, if he's there in the second round, the Phoenix Roadrunners would take a chance on him maybe. But like as a franchise cornerstone, I'm not quite sure if I'm there with someone who is like just a questionable at the run support aspect and the physicality aspect of, although he is truly quite good in coverage, although maybe a little bit of his change of direction ability could get a little bit more exposed at the NFL level. I do think that he's a positive there, and he's pretty smart, but like, yeah, the tackling and just the overall physicality and change of direction from him is like just a little questionable for me personally, but I do not blame anybody who likes him, I suppose, is my take on Devin Lloyd.
Speaking of franchise cornerstones, I think it's about time we talk about Darian Beavers, Cincinnati linebacker. And I'm a big, unless you guys had something else to say about Devin Lloyd.
No, I don't have anything more to say.
I'm a big fan of Beavers. And you might want to take that with a grain of salt because that's true for like all the Cincinnati prospects this year. But in my defense, Sanders, they're all going to be NFL superstars. So I don't know what to tell you. My beef with the current like public opinion of Darian Beavers, people seem to have this idea that he's some like old school linebacker who just is complete run support and not that good enough of an athlete and can't cover and all this. I think Darian Beavers is a very complete package for where he's being mocked right now. I thought he was very good in run support, and I thought his coverage ability was fantastic this year. I think Pro Football Focus said he didn't let up a touchdown all year, which granted, he's a linebacker, but still. So I'm very high on him. I think he's a good mover. I do agree that the tackling sometimes is a little bit of a problem. I know you said that to me earlier, Theo. And there's one play in particular, I totally forget when and against who, but I remember him missing a tackle pretty bad in the big game, and it bothered me. But I think overall, he's being mocked like late third sometimes.
Once you get in the third round, I think it's okay to take Beavers, like for sure. Like late second, third, I think like that's
I agree.
It's Beavers time. It's time to build the dam. Beavers time, and you're taking Beavers, and you're feeling good.
I just think that there's not that many guys who I think are both good in run support and in pass coverage. Like there's a lot of linebackers where it's like they can't do either, and Beavers is probably in that same Devin Lloyd where it's like, is he? He's not going to be some great plus athlete or whatever. Yes, at the NFL level, but I think he's good enough to succeed. I think he can move well enough to succeed. I never felt like he was slow, or his range was like a huge problem at Cincinnati.
It shows up when he has to break down a tackle in the open field, where he doesn't quite have the change of direction ability. Like if the running back does like a subtle move on it, like puts his foot in the ground and starts going the other way, he can't react fast enough, and he kind of has to dive and do an arm instead of just like being able to run through that. He like oftentimes when he has to tackle in space, it will be an arm. It's dicey for him when he has to tackle in space, but he does get like good depth on his zones. Like he does kind of understand like where the quarterback is looking, and like he'll mirror the eyes, and he can take away the middle of the field to a decent degree. Cause it's not, you don't need to be like this hyper athlete to be a coverage linebacker. Like I think like to be a zone, like 90% of coverage for linebackers is just drop a few steps and just like read the quarterback's eyes and just like shuffle back and forth in zone. It's not this huge undertaking. It's more like, are you disciplined? And do you know what you're like?
Well,
do you understand
it's
what?
A little bit of discipline. It's a little bit, can you contest against like a George Kittle? Right?
Yes.
When a George Kittle comes after you, do you have the size and physicality to take
George
him
Kittle doesn't want to see Beavers, as far as I'm concerned.
And you do, when they do throw the ball, you need to close that gap relatively quickly. But which that again might be a little questionable for him, but he like he knows what to do. He's not gonna like blow these assignments or like, if play action, he's not gonna be like flying to the play action to just leave his zone like totally unguarded, or he just like is freelancing out there. He knows what he's doing. And I saw him take away throwing lanes plenty in zone for me. And I think his best trait is he is a tall dude. He's a big guy.
Big. He's really big. He's like 6'4", 240.
Yeah, he's a big linebacker with long arms, which is also something about Lloyd, which I didn't really talk about, where it's like, I don't think he's like the most physical dude, but tall with long arms helps you keep guys out of your frame. And it's hard to watch someone when they have their long arms like this. You can't really get into Beavers' frame, and he's legitimately got some pop to him when he goes up and hits when he has to go up and really fit the run or be the hammer in a defense. He can really punish a linebacker or an offensive lineman like that and let someone else make the play because he just totally took out his lineman.
He weighed in at about 240 at the combine, but a lot of guys slimmed down for the sake of running the 40 faster. He really plays like at 250. I mean, he's huge. And I think that's what will get a lot of people in this mindset that he's like this old school linebacker because he's just so big, but he's good enough in coverage. I think that makes him a really interesting prospect. And I think he is going to be a starting caliber linebacker.
Yes, I like him. Some other quick guys that I watched Christian Harris out of Alabama, who I actually liked a lot. I thought that he is worthy of a late first round pick. Was Christian Harris. Bladen, did you say thank you?
Yeah, I like Christian Harris too.
You've seen him? Yeah. Okay, good. He's good. He's like, I saw like if you watch the Florida game.
Glad we're in consensus, Theo.
Yes, the Florida game especially was nice by him because he was like had to play a decent amount of man coverage and it was just locking. He was locking guys.
Yeah. He
really like there were pulling linemen that he would have to go up and really hit to like clog up that gap. And he was able to do that. He's got good movement skills. I think he ran a ridiculously fast 40. It may have been in the 4.4. Yeah.
This dude's going to Wendy's. Get this man
4.4 flat.
No, it wasn't that.
4.44.
4.44, like the Jay-Z song. But yeah, I mean, he's fat, but great sideline to sideline speed. PFF charted him with a bunch of yards given up in coverage, which I guess is bad. But like when I looked at him, I was like getting good depth in his zones. He can stick with guys one-on-one. Like maybe they just used him in coverage a lot. So that he got a lot of like blown assignments or like a lot of
judging like coverage stats when you're looking at a Bama defense. Like the responsibilities of those guys are like so blurred.
Yeah, especially like, PFF doing it. PFF is horrible at like assigning blame to who gives up what. They just like the nearest defender, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, bad play by that." Like PFF, they have some blind spots with like they don't know. Like they're good at judging.
We
like
literally had Seth Galina on the pod, and
Seth is not the one who gives out the grades. All right, Seth.
I know.
We don't know who gives. That's my big problem with PFF. His fault. I love PFF Seth. I love Seth Galina. I love Seth Galina, and I like a lot of the people at PFF, but they don't do. None of those people do the grade. That's my big problem with PFF. Is like, who is making your grades? Where is this army of ball knowers out there who like know who's at fault? Like, you know how hard it is to understand.
It's dead ass like 19-year-olds.
Like, do you know how hard it is to like understand football? Like, I think I know ball to a decent. I could never do that. Like, even the people I respect, and like, if you do know football to that level, you are coaching or you have some other job and you're not doing PFF grunt work. So it's like PFF grades are very questionable to me because it's like, who is doing it? Like, where is all these ball knowers who can get these like very accurate assumptions of like who's at fault for everything in a day, and they get it out in like a day. Where are you getting? That is my question.
They have like the textbook on how you do it, but it's so nuanced, and there's so much that you have to understand.
Anyway,
here's the future is having computers do it all. That's the future.
The future is just watching it and saying he's got that. Christian Harris has got that dog in him. I watched it. I personally witnessed Christian Harris do a good job in coverage multiple times, and he's get physical. He is someone who also misses tackles. He's a little thin, and he'll overrun tackles.
It's like a common trend here.
Yeah, he'll overrun.
That can't tackle.
Quay Walker can tackle. N'Kobe Dean could kind of tackle.
N'Kobe Dean. Georgia linebackers can tackle.
Georgia linebackers can tackle. But yeah, his overall, like, he'll make some bad reads sometimes. He didn't really, like, for someone who played so much at Alabama, you'd like tackle numbers to be a little bit higher. But yeah, I like Christian Harris. I think like he's got the two things you look cover. Are you getting coverage? Are you super physical? He, I think, is both of those things.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's someone I could see you justify taking in the first round. And it's not like his tackling form. Like, my problem with Lloyd is like his tackling form is just abhorrent. Like, it's like really bad. Like, it's just not going to fly. Like, it's dangerous.
Right. Abhorrent.
Harris isn't good at it, but like it's not like, I think he like tackles like physically like dangerously, and he's just gonna get chewed out by his coach like in practice. I don't know. Anyway, those are kind of my thoughts. Chad Muma's, I guess, the other quick one, and I think this is not analysis. He's just well-rounded. He's a good athlete. Yeah. Can cover a lot of ground. Again, when he has to like flip his hips, I think he looks pretty smooth doing it. Always around the ball. Seems to be pretty smart. Sometimes he'll like get a little excited and bite on like play action, and then the end around will come and he'll be out of position. Like, he can get a little excited, but like 9 times out of 10, he's just reacting quickly. So smart, fast, bigger guy. So he's also someone good. The problem with him is he's never played a game against a Power 5 school ever in his life. So it's a little bit like, I don't know if you're super physical, if you're really great at taking on these like big blocks, because I didn't think he was like especially great at it at Wyoming. So it's like, if he's not especially great at that at Wyoming, is he going to be especially great at it in the NFL? But he's also pretty well-rounded. And it's
same thing with that Troy Anderson guy, who's like a converted running back FCS prospect.
Oh, yeah. The Montana
State guy. And he's supposed to be really high upside. I haven't personally watched him.
I haven't watched him either. So
don't take anything I say about him.
I don't know.
Seriously, but
he ran a 4.42.
Oh, he's great.
Sheesh, he's great. Yeah, he's the next Chaz Surratt.
That means he's the GOAT. But he didn't bench.
Oh, he's weak.
He's weak? Oh, yeah. Let's do our scouting report right now. Just read off the combine numbers.
Read off the combine numbers, and that was his 3-cone. He did not run the 3-cone. So
coward.
He's
a weak coward.
So he's slow, cowardly, or not. So he's weak, cowardly, and
he's fat. You say he's a converted quarterback or running or something, he should go back to that position, in my opinion. So
he's both. He's like a converted like quarterback to running back to linebacker, and played one season at linebacker. Something insane.
Oh, and also Leo Chanel. Leo Chanel will probably be all right too. He's someone I haven't watched a whole lot.
Who was the corner that was like a converted wide receiver last year?
For UTSA?
I don't know. I just remember Chaz Surratt, who used to be a quarterback at UNC and then played linebacker, and then I kind of liked him because he was good in coverage. That's my thing about I did a horrible job evaluating linebackers last year. Like, my top 5 linebacker list was horrible. So do not, like, this year I've kind of adjusted my thing where it's like, okay, I cared too much about coverage last year. I was like, this is a modern NFL. You need to cover. It's a passing league. And then like, I really liked Nick Bolton's tape, but then I'm like, I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up in coverage because he's not really this crazy athlete, but he was like so good at some of the other stuff.
See, here's the thing, right? If someone can't cover, okay, as a linebacker, I can kind of disguise that. I can put you in a position and just say, "Don't fucking move." But if you can't tackle, I can't help you.
There's other guys on the field who can cover. There's not other guys who can do what a linebacker does.
Right. That's kind of where that's kind of like Lloyd is the guy I would have loved last year when I had like Jamin Davis really high. And I was like, oh, Surratt, he's good. Baron Browning, he's really good in coverage from OSU. I was like, that guy's great in coverage. These are the guys where I was like, okay, that's a modern linebacker right there. And then like the best linebackers were Micah Parsons and Ernest Jones and Nick Bolton. And I was like, okay, maybe I just should get like guys like Quay Walker, who's like maybe not as good in coverage as Devin Lloyd, but someone I trust is like a good tackler.
You got to be careful not to over-adjust too much to the point.
For 1 year. That's the thing. It's the draft, man. I'm probably going to be wrong. Devin Lloyd's going to be like,
you'll spend years refining your draft analysis, and then it's no better than it ever was. Everyone's
no better than it ever was. Everyone's guessing. But
it'll always be mid.
If I was building a team, the Theo Ash Roadrunners, I'm taking Quay Walker and building my linebackers.
Not the Phoenix, the Theo Ash Roadrunners.
The Theo Ash Roadrunners. The Phoenix Roadrunners.
Why the Roadrunners? I got it. Like
the Phoenix Theo Ashes.
The Phoenix Theos. Yeah. No, for whatever my fake team is, I'm taking guys like Quay Walker who are from the SEC, unlike the
they play real football.
Yeah, the Pac-12. It's not like Eric Kendricks or Fred Warner has come out of there or anything. Anyway, I don't know. I don't even believe my own process anymore. I'm like, I'm like making my like second round Devin Lloyd video. I'm like, this is going to be so fucking wrong. But you know, at the end, I got to say something.
You got to say something. Well,
I legitimately do think like, okay, I as a GM would not be super enamored with him, but like, I get it if you are. But anyway,
I think that pretty much ties things up for us. As always, tons of content coming away on all platforms. We will be back. What is today? Thursday. We'll be back Monday to, I don't know, what are we talking about next episode? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll let you guys know. You'll figure it out on the next episode. Don't worry about it. Don't miss out on all the great content coming away on all platforms as always from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy. We will catch you all on the flippity flop.